welcome to the Self-Unemployed podcast, where we talk about building wealth, becoming financially free, and achieving self-unemployment. Today I've got a very special guest, Kush Singh, with me today. Hi Kush.
Hi Colin.
So Kush is also a property investor. He's doing lots of different strategies really. Service accommodation, BRRR, sourcing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thank you. So as you were saying, property investor, been doing the property business for just over a year and a half now, coming up to 2 years. So that journey started with looking at all the strategies and trying to figure out what worked for me in that sort of position at the time I was in. The first thing I started with is service accommodation. So built up a portfolio of rent to rents, doing service accommodation in Staffordshire and Milton Keynes, and then looked into deal sourcing, and then most recently have secured my first BRR or flip project, which is exciting, which will be lots of learning points on that. So yeah, looking forward to that, and yeah, we'll see how it progresses. Focusing on deal sourcing going forward, and yeah, there's just so much to learn. And we're in a great environment, as you know, in the academy.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You said you've only been doing property for a year and a half?
That's right, yeah. Well, since I got my first deal in around April 2023. So
Right, so it's not
been
a long
that
time,
long.
really.
No.
Wow. Okay, well, we're going to get more into that, but let me find out a little bit more about who you are. Tell me about where are you from? Where were you born? And
Yeah, sure.
Tell us more about you.
So born in Wolverhampton, not got the accent, but lived there until I was 5. Then we moved to Stafford as a family, and yeah, it's me, mum and dad, younger brother. Grew up in Stafford, went to school here. I'm back here now as well after moving around the UK for work. And yeah, normal childhood really. Mum and dad had their own businesses. They've always worked for themselves, so I think that's where I've had the drive to follow this property journey as well, is because I've realised that I've got a good degree, had a good professional career as an engineer, designing car interiors and that sort of thing. But there was always that drive to do something for myself and create wealth and create generational wealth for my family to pass down as well and create a legacy. So yeah, the family are very supportive. They understand it, and that sort of that point of being in your career after 10 years, I realised I had to do something else.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask what was it like growing up? Were you sort of quite entrepreneurial as a kid? But then you say your parents were both entrepreneurs, so I guess that was. Did you do any sort of entrepreneurial things when you were younger?
Yeah, like me and my brother used to sell stuff in school, to our friends. Like all the latest gadgets, we'd get them from the wholesalers before they were in the shops. So like,
cool.
one of the popular ones was the little toy cars that were remote control. I was selling them in school before they were even in the shops, So that was quite cool.
Yeah.
So it's always been there, I think.
Yeah. So you say it's always been there, but then you then got a job as an engineer, and did then that sort of entrepreneurial spirit get put on the back burner, or what?
I think it's always been there, but you go to university, you sort of follow the lane that everyone else is going down, sort of thing. You go to university, you have a good time, and you get your qualifications, and then I sort of fell into a job, and then before you know it, the years are going by, and then I look back and I think, well, I've done it for 10 years now. So yeah, I'd often look into property and businesses for sale and that sort of thing whilst I was working, but I never really made that jump. And then I saw Samuel online, Samuel Leeds on YouTube, and went to the crash course and then started learning more about actually the barrier to entry for property can be quite low depending on the strategy that you want to work with.
Yeah.
And yeah, I signed up, and it's really has like changed my look on earning money and building wealth.
So yeah, let's get into that a little bit more then. So you were working as an engineer, and I guess you were saying that sort of the system, the education system, and everything has sort of beaten out your entrepreneurial spirit almost, maybe. But then maybe it was like bursting at the seams, wanting to come out. Maybe
Yeah.
is that accurate? Do you think?
Yeah, I think also as well, like, you realize when you get to a point that this is it kind of thing. This is it for
Mm,
the rest of your life, potentially. If you don't make a change, the change has to come from you. You can live a comfortable life, and there's nothing wrong with being comfortable, but comfortable is very average. You'll get average results.
yeah.
So for me, it was the understanding that, well, it's in my power to go and try something else. And I tried something else, that being property, and worked alongside doing both things for 12 months. And then after 12
Oh,
months
right. Yeah.
of being in property, I was able to leave my job. Um, so, I mean, you can make it work at any age, I think. It's all down to the individual, how they feel and how much drive they've got to make it successful.
Mm. Yeah, and certainly with the kind of strategies that we've learned and that on the Samuel Leeds Academy, you can. I mean, I haven't done it yet, but with sort of rent to rents and things, you can kind of replace your income quite quickly.
Yeah.
Although it's not necessarily 100% secure because you don't own the properties with those strategies. But we'll get more into that. But let's go back to the point where you decided that you wanted more. You were working as an engineer, and you said you found Samuel Leeds online, or was that the first thing that got you into it? What got you looking and led you to Samuel Leeds?
Yeah, as I say, so I just found him on my YouTube feed, just a random video. He was talking about whether you should buy a property in a limited company or your own name. I always remember that. That was the first time I ever saw him on YouTube. And then just started looking into his videos and his stuff, and attended a crash course. But before that, I'd always been looking for businesses for sale, um, business ideas that I could start up. But I never made that jump. I think mainly because I was so busy in my career.
Yeah.
It's quite a demanding job. So
And
yeah,
had you thought about property before, or was that the first time?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. But again, I had that view, which is quite the traditional view that you need a big deposit. You need to save up with a big deposit. Get a buy to let, and then just kind of build your wealth over a long period of time. Um,
Yeah, the system doesn't want people to know about the other strategies, and maybe for good reason. Maybe because those things maybe aren't for everyone. It is hard work. You do need to know what you're doing
yeah.
to get it all set up. Um, so okay, so you went through the Samuel Leeds training. Did you go to a crash course and then straight into
Yeah,
the academy, or how did that look?
went to a crash course in Birmingham. Um, really interesting stuff. I was quite, like taken back by what was being shared in that on that day's course. Um, Talking about deal sourcing, rent to SA, rent to HMO, flipping houses using investor finance, kind of mind blowing. There was a lot to take in. And then
Yeah,
I decided to myself that I will not sign up for any further courses at that time. So I didn't do anything on that day. Went home,
right.
thought about it for a lot, and then I think a week later I contacted them and then signed up for the academy.
Straight
Yeah,
into the academy, not to one of the 4 day courses first.
no, straight in because I thought,
Awesome.
well, I've made my decision now and I need to back myself. I need to go through the training. I need the support, I need the mentorship and the network of people who are doing it, and then it's
Yeah,
all down to me to make it happen. So
yeah. So here, I was just explaining to you a little bit before we started filming, but here at Self-Unemployed, we've got this sort of 4 phases of wealth, and I guess what we're talking about here is you jumping from phase 2 to phase 3. Phase 3 is when you start investing in yourself, investing in your education, so that you can then start taking on slightly more risky investments, as opposed to just pensions and index funds in an ISA and things like that, which are fine, which is all good. A lot of people can make a lot of money in those kind of what we call phase 2 investments, or phase 2. Um, and yeah, and so phase 3 is not really for everyone. But what made you? Because investing in yourself, getting that good training, the really high quality training, is not cheap, although it's not expensive compared to regular going to university and things. But, a lot of people might think it's very expensive. What made you so sure that that was the right time to take that leap?
I don't think there is ever a right time, really. It comes
Mm,
down to what you want. So, what outcome do you want from your life, and are you willing to make that change? So, for me, as I say, I understood that I needed some form of training, some form of mentorship, and the network of people around me where I could learn from them, socialize with them, and
yeah.
sort of add value as well. So, like part of this now, we're very lucky to be talking on this channel to give back
Mm,
as well. We're able
yeah.
to inspire other people from our journey, and
Yes.
we don't know, like, this is going out into the ether on YouTube. This will be there, sort of indefinitely. So who knows who will see this at whatever point in time, and it might inspire
Yeah.
them
In 20
to
years'
make that jump.
time, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool to think about, isn't
Mm, mm. Slightly scary as well. I try not to think about it. um,
it?
so, yeah. So why property then? Because you mentioned that you were looking at other businesses to buy and things like that. But what made you decide property?
It's something that I've always been interested in, and like it's often said, you look at the rich list that's published every year. Most of the people, or majority of them, have made their fortunes through real estate or property. So it's always been something that I wanted to do. Um, so it was like, okay, I found a way where I can get involved with property, but the barrier to entry is quite low, and I've found this, network of people where I can learn and bounce ideas off. And the way I describe the academy to other people is it's like a fast track. So you might be able to achieve the same things outside without any training, but you will make more mistakes. It'll probably cost you more money, and it'll take you a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I had that understanding, which is why I thought, yeah, I've always been interested in property. Let's just go for it.
Mm. So you mentioned these strategies then that you use that have a lower barrier to entry to what most people think
Yeah.
about that is involved in getting involved in investing in property. So tell us a little bit more about the strategies that you used first of all.
Yeah, so my understanding was, okay, I need to replace my income ideally from my job. So to do that, I either need to do deal sourcing or some form of rent to rent. So I focused on rent to service accommodation. Um, and to be honest, it took me about probably 5 to 6 months to get my first deal from starting the training. So
Mm.
um, yeah, that was a challenge in itself, taking on all the knowledge, trying to process it,
Yeah.
learning from other people's mistakes, and then trying to take action, but take the right action, and find a good deal, and sort of take it on. And then what I found, Colin, is once you get the keys to your first deal, that's just the first step. There's a lot of learning after that as well. As you
Yeah.
know, with service
Yeah.
accommodation, there's a lot of things to learn, a lot of things to
A lot of processes. So
implement.
hang
Yeah,
on. So let's just step back because a lot of people watching this may not know what we mean by serviced accommodation. So can you explain what that actually is?
yeah, sure. So service accommodation is essentially, it's like a hotel but without staff. So if you're a family traveling for holiday or for business travel, anything like that, you can book a whole property. So mine are houses, for example. You book the
Mm.
whole house, you pay a nightly rate, and it's all fully furnished. All the amenities are there for your stay. You just bring your things, you can check in with a lockbox outside, and yeah, you have a kitchen, you have everything. So instead of a hotel room with just a bed, you get a whole house. Um, and it's
Yeah.
becoming more and more popular because actually, when you look at the value, it's better value than a hotel. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And in a
and
hotel, you often don't get a kitchen and things like that. And
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So,
And we
so
use
do you often get longer stays as well? Sort of, because to rent a place, you need a minimum 6 months for a
yeah,
normal tenancy.
yeah,
But if someone, often contractors things need to stay somewhere for a month or two or three,
yeah,
and you don't want to spend 3 months in a hotel. A hotel's all right for a night or two,
That's it. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. So, and then you said this has got lower barrier to entry. So why is that?
Well, so how it works is you're effectively renting the property from a landlord. So you'll have the costs involved, such as deposits, if the landlord wants a deposit, upfront rent, and then furnishing. So if it comes unfurnished, you'll have to furnish the property, stage it, and by staging we mean making it look nice. So painting, decorating, fully kitting out the place so a guest is
Hmm.
happy and has a good experience in the property. So that can all add up. But again, that's subjective. It depends on the size of the property you're taking on.
Yeah. So you're renting the property, and then and you're renting it unfurnished, right? So you've got to pay for all the furniture as well.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Or we
That,
should say my company's renting the property. So it's like more like a
right.
commercial lease. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the company owns the furniture. So that's
Yeah.
an interesting thing because then you still own the furniture. So even if things went wrong, you could still use that move that to
Yeah.
another property or sell it or
Yeah.
so it's a cost, but it's not purely an expense. You're buying assets, I suppose, some assets, but just not the property itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And even deposits, you'll get it back at the end if you were to
yeah,
give it back. So
yeah. That's interesting. So how much does it cost to? I think you said you've done sort of 3-bed houses. How
yeah,
much does
that's
something
right.
like that cost to stage and deposit? Give us a rundown on the
Yeah.
costs.
So it obviously depends on the amount of rent, but I'd say you're probably looking at about 6 to 7 thousand all in for a typical 3, 4 bed house in terms of
And where's that
deposits rate.
mostly going? Can you yeah break that down for us a bit?
Yeah, so if you're paying, let's say you're paying £1,200 rent, then you've got your deposit, which normally the same amount again, so that's two and a half, and then you might have
Hmm.
about 3.5 to 4.5 on furniture and staging, so it takes you to around
Right.
6, 7K. But as you say, you do own the furniture. You could lease the
Yeah.
furniture as well. That is an option. I know some people do that.
Mm.
So that is always another way of doing it.
So of that overall figure, what was it you said?
So about 7, 8.
Yeah. So a lot of that is not a lot of the deposits coming back to you, and you still own the furniture, which is the majority of that setup cost.
Yeah,
It's only the rent, the first month's rent, and the any
yeah.
cost of decorating and refurbing it if you have to do that.
But then
Um,
the key thing is to negotiate as well. So this is very important that when you do take on a deal, you've done your due diligence, you know your numbers, you know your break even point, so you know what nightly rate you can charge based on
mm,
comparables in the area. Um, but yeah, you need to negotiate. So just going back to the first deal I got a 3 week rent-free grace period from the landlord. So I was actually earning money from bookings before I paid any rent to the landlord. So
okay,
that
that's
you
good.
can use that to your advantage and say, well, I'm going to fully redecorate, repaint, furnish the property. I need a bit of time to get started. And that normally works quite well with giving you a window of time where you can then effectively have the property for free almost.
Yeah. So normally a landlord's if they're getting a regular tenant in, they would expect the rent from day one. But you're saying that sort of in lieu of rent, you're going to renovate the place.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then
So
what's worked well for me, every time I've taken on a property, I've invited the landlord back when it's fully
mm,
staged and just said, "What do you think?" And they love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just want to quickly say thank you so much for watching or listening. If you are watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe and all that, and subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review. All those things are super useful. But if you like what you're hearing and you'd like to become self-unemployed yourself, then I'd really like to build a community. And the way that I'm doing that is I've got a free mailing list that you can join. And when we record these episodes, they're going to be put out as live streams. So you'll get to see a little bit behind the scenes. You'll get to see the episodes before they go out on the main channel and on the podcast. And you'll get to interact with us as we're recording. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, head on over to the website, links in the description. And I look forward to chatting with you
as we record future episodes.
So why would a landlord not just do this themselves once you've given them the idea?
Yeah, a lot of people say that, but in my experience, they're busy people. Um,
Mm.
they've got busy jobs or they've got businesses that they're running. They're really in it for the long-term capital appreciation from what I've seen. They just want no hassle, get the rent paid, and work with professional people. And actually, when you think of the benefits that we provide landlords, it's kind of a no-brainer. Why would they not give them all to companies? You know?
Yeah, because I mean, when you rent a place, you unless you're managing yourself. I mean, if you are, that's a lot of work. And if you're not, you've got an agent. The agent's going to be charging 10, 12%. Plus, they might have other admin costs on top when you get a new tenant doing the paperwork and all that. So it ends up being quite expensive. So I guess that you're reducing those costs for them as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So, you know, we normally look to sign for at least a 3-year contract. And in that 3 years, there's no voids or, you know, no missed payments or anything like that, no management fee. So the rent that's agreed is what the landlord gets for that period of
time. So
time.
it's a lot lower risk from them because they know they've got their mortgage to pay. Yeah, and they know that for at least a set amount of time, they're not going to have any voids. They're not going to have management to pay. They know exactly what their cash flow is going to be. For that period of time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also, as you know, they're dealing with a company, so it's company in a contract with the landlord. So Section 21, which is where Section 21 is issued if a tenant doesn't pay rent, doesn't really come into it because we're not a tenant, we're a company. So if we don't pay the rent, we really don't have any rights past the 7-day period. So they can evict us very quickly as well.
Yeah, so Section 21, that's the no-fault eviction, right? Where the landlord can say to a tenant, as long as a certain amount of time's passed, they can just say they want the property back. They're talking about getting rid of that, which is worrying a lot of landlords. But you're saying that with you, they could still ask you to leave or no, as long if you void your contract, if you violate your contracts, So if a tenant doesn't pay rent on a normal contract, it can be difficult to get them out. It can take a long time.
It's the time, isn't it?
But with you, they can, as soon as you don't pay rent, they can kick you out straight away, sort of thing.
Pretty much, yeah, because we've voided the contract.
Yeah. So it's much safer kind of deal from the landlord's point of view. It's funny how not more landlords sort of know about it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any landlords watching, feel free to reach out. It's definitely a good option for you guys because it's like your house is like a showroom in effect.
Yeah.
As well.
Yes, you mean you're going to be keeping it in much better condition?
Yeah, and we have the cleaners go in, so actually the level of the standard of the property is kept to a very high level because of that. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if we don't keep it in a show home condition, we're going to get bad reviews, and then we won't get repeat bookings, and then we're going to struggle. Yeah. So that really is important for us.
So you said it took you about 5 months to find your first one, or get the keys to your first one?
Yeah.
Why did it take so long?
Yeah, interesting story, really. So joined the academy, did all the live training, did the online training, went through it all. But then it's like you're in a sweet shop. You don't know what strategy to go down, what to spend your time on, and there's so much information. So I was looking at all of them, and I realized after a while I'm not focusing on one because even to do one is quite time consuming. There's a lot to take in. So I think at least half the time was due to that.
So before you joined the academy, you didn't, at that point you weren't thinking I want to do service accommodation. You were just, what were you thinking at the beginning? Just property in general, or did you have any certain strategies in mind?
My sort of going in point was BRR and flips. But when you look at the other strategies, and bearing in mind the academy is a 12-month program, and a BRR might take you, if 12 months is probably quick for a BRR, isn't it?
Including finding it, going through all the legals, doing the renovation, and then
That's
you
it.
normally have to wait 6 months from completion before you can refinance. So
Yeah.
you're looking at 9 months would be super fast, I think.
Yes. So based on
a
that,
year easy. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
based on that,
Plus, you need a lot of capital because you generally need to either buy the house cash or get bridging loans, which is a lot more, or an investor, which again is much more complicated and difficult if you don't know the right people or have the right, or if you've never done it before.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I realised, okay, let me just focus on something that can replace my income from work, and then rent to SA was something that appealed to me. I really like the idea of having a nightly rate instead of a tenant kind of thing. And I quite enjoyed the marketing side of it. So optimizing the listing through Airbnb and Booking.com and creating your own website and that sort of thing. And yeah, you've got the first one. I actually got the first 2 deals I got within 2 weeks of each other. So I went from a position of having no properties and just learning to having now 2 to set up at the same time. So that was a bit of a challenge, but very enjoyable as well, especially when the bookings start coming in and you see actually this thing really works. And I can go and look at different areas now and replicate it.
Yeah. And do you say you got bookings coming in within a month of getting the keys? Is that what you said?
I think within a few days we had bookings coming in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went live. It went live in the first week of May, after having got the keys mid-April. So it was pretty soon after we went live. We had bookings.
And so this was only last year, right? You're saying? Or... Yeah. And did you say you're going for like 3-year contracts? So you still have all those 2 properties?
Yes. Yeah. So the first, actually no, sorry, Colin. So the first one was in Milton Keynes. So that's been sold. I sold that to an investor. So that's now gone. I had another one in Milton Keynes, which was, I think, the 4th one I took on. That's gone back to the landlord. And this is a good learning point to maybe discuss, because you can always do your due diligence on the numbers, but ultimately there is a risk involved. There is a level of risk. And with that one, I found that it wasn't really performing as well as I had hoped, as well as the sort of planned in the numbers beforehand. So I got to the 6-month break clause and decided to give it back to the landlord.
So just to be clear, when you say 6-month break clause, you mean in the contract there is a bit that says I can hand it back to you within the first 6 months if it's not going well.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, which is very important, because we don't want to be tied in for 3 years if something goes wrong or if it doesn't take off as well as we thought.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, again, like we've just previously talked about, so furniture I sold to a friend who was setting up an SA at the same time, so that kind of worked in terms of timing, and deposits came back as well. So really, it wasn't a massive loss, but the learning point is make sure you're using the right contracts to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And now another thing you mentioned there that some people might be confused about. You said that the first one you sold, but you were only renting it. So explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, so by that I mean sold it as a turnkey investment. So it's still a rent to service accommodation. So the landlord is the same. It's just another person who's doing what I'm doing is now taking over. And because it's a going concern, they've paid me a fee to take on that property. So
so basically all the work that you've done in setting it up and in negotiating with the contract with the landlord, you effectively packaged and passed on to somebody else.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Interesting. So what then? What next then? How many are you still doing rent to rents?
Yeah, so got 3 rent to SAs still. They're doing really well. They're actually local to where I am as well, so easy to manage. I self-manage everything. Got a really good set of cleaners and power team in place. I use Avivo as the channel manager, which have been awesome for automating a lot of things. So really,
tell us a little bit more about Avivo, what they do for you, or channel managers in general.
Yeah, so a channel manager, really, I think you really do need a channel manager if you're doing service accommodation. What they will do is they provide a level of automation in that when the bookings come in through places like Airbnb and Booking.com, they show in your channel management software. So they prevent you getting double bookings. So you might get a booking on Airbnb, it then blocks the calendar in Booking.com, so you can't get a double booking and then have to deal with that problem. You can also add your cleaning team to the calendar so they can see when your bookings are, when the checkouts are, and go in and clean without you having to sort of manually message them. You
Yeah.
can automate all the emails that are sent to guests, like before check-in, when they've checked in, after they've checked out, that kind of thing. You can also create your report so you can see what revenue you've made and all that sort of thing. So I think the way to look at it is, if you want to make serviced accommodation as passive as possible, you really need some sort of channel manager. Otherwise, it's almost like you've just created another job for yourself, which it's a lot of work really if you're doing it all manually. So definitely recommend. As I said, Avivo is what I use, but there are others out there that other people use. But yeah, very important.
And it's interesting. Now, I'm not doing this strategy myself, but I have heard that it is interesting the level of automation you can achieve, because you can have door locks with combinations, and those can automatically change between guests, and cleaners can have a separate login that works just for them. So you don't even need someone to be there to let them in or let them out. Do you do any of that sort of thing, or?
I don't do that, no. So I've got just the old-fashioned lockbox by the front door.
Right.
But again, that the lockbox code is you put it into Avivo and it's then shared with the guest, and you can change.
So it's electronic.
No, it's the combination.
The combination on the app, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you don't need to talk to the guest. It's all done through Avivo.
No, and that's the other positive from a guest point of view. They can check in any time. It's 24-hour check-in as long as they've booked for that specific day. Sometimes you get contractors check in quite late. They've been working all day or they've been traveling to get down there. And sometimes in a hotel that can be a bit of an issue. There might not be someone at the desk. Whereas with us, they can just let themselves in anytime. And just going into a bit about my customer base, so a lot of them are contractors. They've got vans and vehicles with tools and that sort of stuff, and having a driveway where they can park, where there's CCTV and there's some sort of a sense of security, means a lot to them as well. Sometimes in a hotel you're parked quite far away from your room, you can't see your vehicle, so that's worked as a real benefit for them.
That's good.
Yeah.
So that's rent to SA, rent to service accommodation.
Yeah.
But that's not the only strategy you're doing. Tell us what else you got up to next after you set them up.
Yeah. So did that I'm still doing that. So that's kind of ticking away in the background. It is quite passive. And then I've been deal sourcing as well. So deal sourcing, rent to SA, rent to service accommodation. So sold a few of those deals. Also, sort of BRR and flip deals. I know we've spent some time together in the Northeast, Colin.
So we should say this. You actually sold me a deal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't go through because the seller decided not to sell. But yeah, we met up through the academy on one of the Monday night masterminds. They're called a Zoom call basically every Monday, and then we had a chat. We realised that we were both interested in the Northeast, investing in the Northeast of England. So we arranged to basically meet up there. And you were viewing some properties, and I said, "Is it all right if I tag along?" And yeah, that was really interesting day seeing you and your business partner Guru. That's his name, Guru.
Yeah.
Working together, and especially seeing how Guru sort of works with the estate agents and building his relationship. And yeah, one of the properties we went to see, I just really, really liked, and I just thought, I was due to do a refinance, and I decided I would buy it, and I was happy to pay you even though I was there with you, I was happy to sort of pay you the finder's fee, because I realised that we wouldn't have seen that, and I wouldn't have been there if it hadn't been for those relationships that you and your partner have been building with the estate agents. So
Yeah.
so yeah. So that's what deal sourcing is. It's when one person who finds a deal, can sell it to, finds a good property and maybe puts in an offer and does that sort of negotiation, and then sort of sells that work by packaging that deal to another investor who doesn't have time to do that. Maybe they're based a long way, further away, and they don't have the time to be doing that, but they still want to be making the investment.
Yeah.
So how much deal sourcing are you doing?
It's probably I'd class it as part-time actually. So viewing houses at the moment, mainly looking more towards BRR and flips at this current time, but previously having looked at both SA and BRR. So it's something that going forward I want to focus more on, because I think a good point to mention now about deal sourcing is, I think you can have a really good deal and package it up and save the investor a lot of time. But I think the most important thing is your reputation and what people know you for. I think I need to maybe work on that a bit more and put myself out there, into the ether and sort of be known for doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because there are, when you get into these kind of networks, there are a lot of people deal sourcing, and there's one particular deal sourcer that I'm very keen to work with, and the reason I'm very keen to work with him is because I know that he sort of stands by his numbers, the numbers that he gives. He says he really stands by them, and I know that they're not just numbers he's made up. He's got a build team so they're based on actual quotes and stuff. So and also he's not just selling the deal, he's also, part of the deal is managing the renovation, and he's also got lettings management within his company as well. So it can be very hands off. It can be completely hands off for an investor. You could be living in another country in a way.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So those are the things that can really set deal sources apart. Is that just being, like you said, reputation.
And I think part of it, Colin, is it's the other thing is, if you've done the strategy yourself in your personal life, it adds more weight to it. So me now doing my own flip deal, working on that, and being able to show that as proof and have that experience of managing a refurb myself will add a lot of weight to deals in the future, where I can say, well, I've got my own sort of down the road in the same area. I've already got the build team and I've managed my own, and this was the outcome. So that's part of it.
So what stage are you at with that? You're working on a flip now, did you say? Or
so it's early days, so not got the keys yet, but we're going through surveys, etc. at the moment. So hoping to get keys in the next sort of 4 weeks from now. So September time, hopefully we get keys and we can start with the refurb, which is exciting.
So just to backtrack a little bit, some people might be confused by these words flip and BRR. Do you want to explain the difference?
Yeah, sure. So it's actually BRRR, so BRRR, which is buy, refurbish, refinance, rent. So you buy a rundown property, you do a full refurbishment, so you bring it up to a sort of a decent standard, depending on your end goal and the sort of surrounding area. You then rent it to a sort of normal tenant buy-to-let, and then you're able to refinance it. So the sweet spot with this is if you buy it at the right price and then spend the money on the refurb, and then you push the value up to a point where you can refinance and get all your initial capital back, and you end up with essentially a free cash flowing property. So you're recycling your pot of money that you put in, you get it back out, and you can go again. So that's the BRR method.
That's the sort of dream scenario. I've sort of learned that's, although not impossible, it's quite difficult with sort of residential houses that you're buying and just renovating, especially the kind of ones that I'm doing, and I think maybe the ones you're looking at are similar. So you do often end up leaving a few £1,000s in, but your return on that investment can still be pretty decent, like 20-30%. So it doesn't need to be that all money out to be a good deal.
Yeah, and again, So, sorry, just to say, those numbers you mentioned, like 20% return on investment, let's be honest, you're not going to get anything near that in the bank. So
No,
it's
no.
safe, you're going to get your money back at some point, and the capital appreciation is there as well. So in 5 years' time, you can refinance and it's gone up in value. You can pull that out as well and go again.
Mm. So the danger, though, is that you rent it out, or your mortgage payments end up being more than you're receiving after you've paid management cost, maintenance, and things like that. So, and it could be that the value of the house has gone up a lot. So your mortgage costs are a lot because the house is worth a lot, and what it rents for, what the yield is not high enough. So in that case, we were talking about the difference between a flip and a BRR. In that case, that would make a good property as a flip, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
where essentially you do the same thing. So you're buying something that's needs work doing to it. You do the refurb and then you list it for sale. So yeah, you're just kind of flipping it that's where the word comes from. You're just selling it on, and then you can make some money and go and do something else with it.
And so they are very, very similar. It just depends on the area, really. So really, it depends on the individual property. But in general, in areas I think where house prices are way above average, the national average, flips tend to work better. And in places where there's cheaper house prices, then BRR tends to work better. Would you agree with that?
Not entirely. I think they
No?
both work everywhere, to be honest.
If you find the right, every strategy works everywhere if you find the right property.
And the caveat to that is I think you've got to buy it at the right price.
Yeah.
I think you make your money when you're buying it. You've got to go back and forth with agents a little bit, and you've got to have the time to view multiple properties. And part of that is building your relationship with these agents, as you saw when you mentioned Colin earlier, that when you've got that relationship, they might have a sale that's fallen through, which is what happened with us when we were up there in the northeast. That they're on the phone to us because they know we're looking for something. And without that relationship, they don't know you, so why would they contact you? Kind of thing.
And I mean, that trip really opened my eyes to the importance of actual face-to-face relationships with agents, and not just scrolling Rightmove to find deals, because you don't meet anyone. No one knows you through Rightmove, and it's the number of more deals that you can get that way is really high.
And then part of it is being willing to just view properties that do have potential, but they might not stack up in terms of the purchase price that they're listed for. They might not be the ideal thing that you're looking for, but really, when you get a viewing booked in, you've got an appointment with that agent where you can build rapport, you can learn how you can help them as well. And you can explain to them what you're looking for. So maybe 3 months in the future, they get something and they call you because you've had that interaction with them. And what I'd say is has been very useful for me as well is after every viewing, just touch base with the agent and give them feedback on what you saw. So run your numbers through them and just say, look, I know it's listed for this much, but I'm going to spend this much on a refurb. This is what the end value is. Am I kind of right in the right ballpark? And they'll agree with you or not. And then sort of you have that conversation of, well, this is what I'm looking to do. Therefore, I need to purchase it for around about this number. Would that work? And then they understand what you're doing. And then they say, oh, it wouldn't work for this one, but next time we have something, we'll give you a call. And that's worked really well.
Yeah, actually. Because I think what a lot of people may not realize is agents, okay, they want to sell houses, but they're essentially working for the sellers. And the sellers want to know that they're working, that they're trying. And so they want to do viewings, even if there's only a slim chance you're going to buy. They do want to do viewings, and then they want your feedback that then they can pass on to the seller to say, look, we showed it to this person, this is what they said, just to kind of show that they're doing they want to be able to show that they are doing the work that they are doing. They want to be able to, but they want to show that to the seller as well. So giving them feedback is really important way of building your relationship with them.
Yeah, and I think it's one of
Yeah.
those things. If you don't ask, you don't get. So it might be listed for a price, but it's almost irrelevant what it's listed for, because if you can show your numbers based on what you're
Yeah.
going to spend, what it's worth at the end, and if you're a cash buyer, you can move quickly, and that can often motivate people as well to say, okay, well,
Yeah.
this person is ready to go. Maybe we'll accept it.
So what are you? You're just about to start renovating this flip. So why going back to flip versus BRR? I know we disagreed a little bit on that. Why then is this property a flip and not a BRR?
Well, it could be a BRR, but I think so. It all depends on the person's situation. So for me and my wife, what we're trying to do is build up a cash pot. So I think for that, a flip works better because you're getting the cash back in a shorter amount of time, whereas BRR is more of a long-term thing. You could get all your money back, but like you said, Colin, realistically, you probably will have to leave a bit in the property and earn it back over time. So yeah, there's I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's all based on what your preference is. And look, there's as I said, there's always a level of risk involved. So if you go in with the intention of a flip, it might not sell for what you're looking for at the end. And then you could also refinance it and keep it. So we have those options. So we're open to those.
Well,
things.
things never go to plan, 100%. I mean, so yeah, but you still have to make the plans and and then hope for and then work as hard as you can to make the plans come to fruition. Things never go 100% to plan. But I found that mostly it's sort of delays that are the problems that get caused, rather than numbers being hugely off and things like that. Especially when it comes to revaluing, doing the valuation at the end in terms of BRR. I've got a property at the moment that the more when trying to remortgage it, the lender just said, no, we don't want to remortgage this, and they said, I mean, the market's always changing. There'll be reasons they say no for now, and then in a month's time it'll be fine. So it's kind of just bad timing. I'm just applied again, hoping that's going to go through in the next couple of weeks. So have you had any setbacks in your what's been your biggest challenge that you've faced since you've been in property over the last couple of years?
There's been a lot of challenges. I think the challenge is every day, really. The biggest one, I'd probably say when I was starting, trying to get the first deal, was a mixture of frustration and kind of like almost self-doubt as well. You've got nothing to show a landlord. You've got your training behind you. You've got your network, which I suppose it is a positive thing. Absolutely, I shouldn't say you've got nothing to show, but when I say you've got nothing, I mean you've got no other property. You've got no portfolio or something to show them. So for me, getting the first one was probably the biggest challenge. But then when I got it, it gave me such a confidence boost. And then going forward, getting that one ready and getting the bookings coming in, I use that as leverage when I had any conversation with another landlord.
Because it adds to your credibility.
Absolutely, yeah. You can show them. You've got another landlord that can vouch for you, give a reference. You've got a property that you can actually physically show them, which is what I've done in the past. You can show them your listings online, your reviews from your guests. So it makes things a lot easier. It's just that first one. And just something I've been thinking about that I wanted to share as well is when you go on this journey, whether it's property or something else, something entrepreneurial, often people have the day job, but then they have this dream and this aspiration to do something else. But then normally you're doing both at the same time. And you're kind of jumping away from your job into this other thing. And it can be quite lonely as well, because your friends probably aren't in that situation. Your family aren't in that situation. They don't quite understand it. Your time is spread thinly. so it's sort of pushing through that until you start seeing progress. But the thing is, you might not see progress for a number of months. You just have to
Yeah.
keep going, you know. So that's something that people need to be aware of, and don't, not to be put off by if they're in that situation. They just need to keep going and believe that they will get to what they want.
Yeah, it is. It is super hard, especially working full time, and it's just psychologically getting your mind from one job, one role into another, is really hard. You know, if you're
Yeah,
essentially doing two jobs,
yeah,
not just the amount of time it takes, but it's just really hard to switch your brain from one mode to another.
yeah. And you know, that feeling of I'm putting everything into this new project that I'm doing as well as my job, but I'm not seeing results. But the thing is, if you give
Yeah,
up, the result that's guaranteed is that it won't go anywhere.
yeah,
So it can be quite challenging, but now it's absolutely worth it.
yeah. I also do think maybe sometimes when you're on the academy, you hear the stories of people's success and things, and people getting things up and running quickly. Although what you said, things taking 5 months, that's quite typical. I mean, you'll hear people going quicker. People should also just step back and think, hang on a minute. There's no shame in going at your own pace. Like, I think if it takes you 18 months, that's fine, because you're the only one who can decide. You might have kids, or your job situation, your financial situation is different. It's unique to you. So just because you're going slower than someone else, it doesn't matter. That's fine. Everyone should be free to go at their own pace,
Yeah.
and do their own thing.
Yeah, I think everyone's on their own journey. Everyone's circumstance is different. So it's good to be in an environment with other people doing it, but if you compare yourself too much, you can,
Yeah,
sort of put yourself down because you see other people doing it. I think there's a balance between, not to put yourself down, but to think, well, if other people around me are doing it, then that shows me I can do it as well, and take the positive
yeah,
from it and use it as motivation and drive to say, okay, I'm in the right room, so let's keep
yeah,
going.
yeah. It's so true. It's what may be inspiring at one point, if you don't get the results, could be discouraging
Yeah,
later on.
I
But
think,
you just need to know what it is that you need to get from that. Like you said, see that, okay, they're doing it, so I can do it. I'm in the right room
yeah.
with those right people. So yeah, we met because we were interested in the Northeast. So you tell us about what you're doing up in the Northeast now. Is that where your flip is?
No, no, that's local to
No,
me. That's local to me.
right.
But
That makes sense.
yeah, but as you know, me and Guru are working together. So he's based there,
Yeah,
and he's actually doing his own project now, another project. So maybe if
I've
you,
seen that on Instagram. Yeah,
yeah, maybe a future guest, he can talk you through it himself.
yeah,
But that would be awesome, to go and see that. Um, yeah. So, but the background is that he's in that area, and he's got good links to the estate agents, and together we're going to work on
yeah.
sourcing projects up there for people. So, and I think
Mm.
myself personally, I will look to invest up there as well because there is so much regeneration going on, and in terms of
Mm.
value, it's at a different level compared to the rest of the UK, I think.
Yeah, I remember when I went up there with you. You were like, "Wow, there's so many good deals up here."
Yeah,
You were really surprised. It's amazing how different areas can be.
yeah,
But yeah, the number, especially for BRR, I think the numbers do work really well up there.
yeah.
Um,
It'd be great to do maybe another session up there, maybe another podcast in the car or something. But yeah, the
yeah, well,
tour of
that
the
was an
area.
idea I had when I was with Kush, that I could like offer to drive people around and for a day, and record a podcast in the car. So that's an idea I might do in the future. So tell us a little bit more. You obviously we've met through Samuel Leeds Academy. Tell us a little bit more about what goes on in the academy.
Okay, where do I start, really? So You got the training. So you've got the training. So if you join the academy, basically you've got access to live training and online training for multiple different strategies in property. So as we've talked about already, you've got BRR, you've got deal sourcing, service accommodation, HMO, rent to rents, lease options. I mean, there's also other modules, isn't there, Colin, about tax and that sort of stuff, auctions. Um,
Yeah, a lot of that, and then there's the online. You're talking about the live training that covers those things,
yeah,
and then there's a lot more that gets covered in the online trainings. Then you've got stuff that goes into more detail on auctions and tax and
yeah,
there's
yeah. I mean that's sort of the training element, but you've also then got the social side of it. So you've got the monthly dinners down in Heathrow. You've got the WhatsApp chat. You've got the new social forum. You've got the inner circle meetings that I know you attend quite a lot of.
yeah.
So really, there's a lot of networking there. People of all backgrounds, people with lots and lots of experience, people just starting out, people with money, people with lots of time, people in the trades. So yeah, it's a great network. I think, as I say, it's like a shortcut almost to getting you started
Mm.
because you've got all the tools there. What I found quite useful is the quote my refurb feature, where you can upload the details and get some insight into how much a refurb would cost. To have that support
Yeah,
quite
so I think
useful.
they have a builder basically who basically gives out quotes, or not quotes because they're not going to do the work, but they give an estimate of how much they think a job will cost, which is super useful.
Yeah,
Um, and then there's also the finance, Samuel Leeds Finance, so which is kind of tied in with quote my refurb, and then the other thing is rate my deal, like
yeah,
so you once you've costed up the refurb through the rate my refurb, you can then take the whole deal as a package to get assessed, and they'll tell you how good a deal they think it is before you try and sell it, because you don't want to be selling, like you said, reputation is really important, and you might think a deal is good, but it might not be.
yeah,
So it's a good idea to get it checked over to see if it is before you sell it, and that's another feature that they have. And then if it is a really good deal, they might even Samuel Leeds might even fund it himself.
yeah.
So yeah,
Also, another thing, yeah, just something to say about the academy and sort of the whole thing, how it's set up is because it accelerates your growth. You're then able to, like, it's very common for people to quit their day jobs while they're in the academy. It's like normal. It gives you
yeah,
time to then do what you want in your life. So if you want to spend more time focusing on your family and your health and your hobbies and that sort of thing, it gives that time back to you. Um, and you're going to get to a certain point, like we see it time and time again, like through the mentors and training advisors and just general people in property that are successful. They're able to then like give back, give to charity,
exactly.
help improve the environment by buying big projects and creating social housing and stuff like that. So it starts with you doing it for you and going through that tough period. But if you keep going, you're going to get to a point where you can actually change the lives of many people around you, or even on the other side
Yeah,
of the world, So it becomes quite an unselfish thing if you push.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm really trying to get across with the Self-Unemployed podcast, and that's really what the message is, that um, it's not just about having enough money to not have to work. It's about freeing yourself up so that you've got time to pursue more valuable things with your time, and have more of a positive impact on on society, and then not just with your time, but also be investing in things, because in this country, one of the biggest challenges we have is housing, a lack of housing. I mean, we talk about house prices going up and rents going up. Well, that's because there's not enough houses and too many people wanting to live in them, whether they're buying or renting. It's the same market forces. So every house we renovate and bring back onto the market, it's important to remember that those houses, if they're in a very bad condition, they can't be rented out. I'm sorry, they can't be. You can't get a mortgage on them. A first-time buyer can't buy them if they need a mortgage. So the only way to get those houses back into the housing stock and be available is for an investor like us to come in and use bridging loans or our own capital to do a BRR or a flip, to bring them back. So I think it's a really important thing what property investors like us do, and I feel like we don't get credit for it sometimes.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's the media maybe painting it as a different story. And obviously there are bad landlords, there are good and bad everywhere.
Yes.
But yeah, I think when people actually look at what's being done, they'll realise actually if it wasn't for these investors and landlords, then there'd be a lot of properties that wouldn't be as nice. Wouldn't be as nice to live in those areas.
Well, there'd still be, wrecks.
Yeah.
Ruin, just continuing to deteriorate, abandoned.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up, I've got one unusual, strange question for you. I was watching a Mr. Beast video the other day, and he gave away $700,000 to these two people that lived in a nuclear bunker for 3 months. So, what would you do if you were given $700,000?
What would I do with it? Well, given my position, I think most of it would be reinvested, because I know now that can grow to be 10x in a few years.
So what would you invest in?
Property. Some form of property.
But what strategy?
I think probably some form of commercial. So maybe commercial to residential, or commercial on a long lease, and then push the value up. So by that I mean buy an empty commercial building, and then get a good tenant in, and then push the value up, make some money.
Is that because that sort of arrangement will be a bit more hands off, less work for you? Is that or?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking
that amount of capital.
Yeah, I'm just
that would.
Yeah, in terms of like you've got a big pot to start with, so let's do big stuff.
Yeah.
And get a big return.
Yeah.
I think that makes most sense as opposed to doing like smaller things, because there's still work involved. It's still work is work, isn't it? Let's just do bigger stuff. Would be my thinking. But it's a nice position to be in, I think, definitely.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, but I just can't help thinking that most of the people that Mr. Beast gives money to, probably a couple of years later, they haven't got anything to show for it.
That's very true. Can I ask Colin, what would you do with it? Put you on the spot now.
So, yeah, what would I do with it? I mean, obviously, I would invest in property. I would make sure I'm maxing out my ISA every year for the next couple of years, and make sure I'd probably put a little bit into my pension as well. So, because I think ISAs are really, really good way in the long term to get to get some of your investment tax free but it's limited to how much you can do each year. So I'd make sure I'm maxing that out. And then I'd put the rest into doing more BRRs, I think, but I'd be looking to do BRR to SA. So I'd be looking to rent as service accommodation. I'm also interested in doing sort of BRR to social housing and getting a social housing tenants, because I think that's a really valuable thing to do. Something that there's a huge need for that. And it's again it's sort of as opposed to renting to a regular tenant, you get a long lease.
Yeah. So
it works well on both ends. And maybe a couple of HMOs, some combination of those things. Yeah, I'm keen to do because all the properties I have at the moment are regular tenancies. One I'm trying to change to an SA because I think it's going to work well as an SA, but I'm keen to do more SA, social housing, and HMOs as my next projects.
Yeah. And the good thing is that you've got the training and you've got the knowledge on all the strategies now. So it's kind of like whatever fits that property, you're able to go and implement. So you've got options.
Okay.
I did have one last question actually, and you've already sort of answered it. I was going to say, who do you think I should have on the show next? When we mentioned Guru, your business partner, he would be amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be reaching out to him. Anyone else?
Oh gosh, there's so many. If I name someone, it's going to be favoritism, isn't it?
But if I can, the thing is, if I can send them a little clip of a video of you saying they should be on, they're more likely to be. Yeah, okay,
so,
I'll, agree to come on.
My very good friend Samuel Johnson is a great guy, very, very successful, HMO king.
He's actually scheduled to come on. He's a bit busy the next couple of months, but he's coming on. He said he'd come on in like September, October. So yeah,
I'll speak to him.
Anyone else?
I'll get him on before.
No, he's keen to do it. He's just busy the next couple of months.
Yeah. So there's Anna. Anna from the Academy. She often cruise. She's very successful as well. Very nice. Like she's come from. Her story is just very interesting and very nice as well. She's a really lovely person.
Right. She runs the.
I think it's Hertfordshire.
Hertfordshire.
Yeah,
Hertfordshire,
in a circle.
Yes, I have met her. Yes. Great. Okay. Well, thanks for that, Kush. That was really good.
Yeah, no worries. Awesome. Pleasure.
As we've been saying, Kush and I met on the Samuel Leeds Academy. If you are interested in coming along and joining us, it's very easy. You can join with you can come along to a £1 crash course. So it only costs £1, and you get to spend a whole day getting a taste of the training that we've had. And it really, when I did it, it really blew me away. So I would highly recommend doing that. If you've got an opinion on Samuel Leeds and you haven't met him, you haven't experienced his training, you shouldn't have an opinion, because he makes it so easy to actually experience what he's offering. There's really no excuse for having a bad opinion of him or a good opinion if it's not informed. So I would really encourage you to do that. There's a link in the description. Okay, well, if you are still watching, thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you're on. Leave us a review as well. All that stuff really helps. But the main thing is, head on over to our website, selfunemployed.co.uk, and there you'll be able to enter your email address. And once you've done that, you'll get invited to join us when we are recording future episodes. They're going to go out as live streams on YouTube, but not to the public, only to people who are on that mailing list. So if you do that, you'll be able to interact with us, ask questions as we're recording future episodes. So if you're looking to grow your wealth and become self-unemployed, let's do it together. I'll see you next time.